oldest and maybe one of the big four. We also pride ourselves of being or having the roots of a family business as well. A few years ago, we started what we call the Family Business Center of Excellence. And why we did that is basically to make sure that we are taking care of the families that we work with. We've been working with family businesses for hundreds of years, many years, and we've been taking care of their businesses, their assets. However, we found that many families, as we learned today in the morning as well, did not succeed in transferring the wealth and the knowledge from one generation to the next. Were not able to sustain for longer than the third and the fourth generation. I have many views about this specific topic in terms of successful transition from one generation to the next. As you learned in the morning, we saw that we have very grim statistics that less than 5% survive beyond the third generation. However, I have a different view. My view is that sometimes families adapt, they change. If they sell the business and go into another venture, that does not mean that they have failed. They have managed to create a different form of a family business. So they continue, but in a different way. Unfortunately, statistics and researchers always focus on one business that is managed by a family, or the family controls the management or controls the majority of shareholders, shareholding, and that is continuing in the same industry, in the same business. So if they sell it, they consider this as failure. So probably the statistics is correct in that respect, but if we look at it as absolutely, we'll find that many families are able to continue beyond the third and the fourth generation. In fact, we see some of the largest and most successful families in the world are originally family-owned businesses. We've heard in the morning there's Walmart, Ford, Porsche, Toyota, many names, and they have managed to continue from one generation to the next, to the next, and to the next. How did they manage to do that? Is by being able to adapt, being innovative, and taking a longer view of things, whether at the business and or at the family side. We've seen that some of the families in Japan, for example, there is one very famous family that was a family business that was created in the 600, which is the 7th century, and the family was able to sustain the business until maybe a few years ago, when they collapsed during the financial crisis. And you can imagine the burden that the generation that was burdened with collapsing the family business legacy that lasted for almost 13 centuries, and they had to, or they were not able to manage the succession and transition and continue the family in the business going forward. In our region, we have not reached that stage yet. We're relatively young region. Many of the businesses started in the 60s and 70s. We are going through transition between the first and the second generation, or the second and the third generation. And also, one of the main criteria of our family businesses is they are involved in multiple sectors. In many of the European or American models, they are largely focused in one industry and one sector. In our region, due to the various factors, mainly because the communities are relatively smaller, people started working as entrepreneurs, so whatever opportunity that came across them, they were entering into it. So you'll find families in the region working in real estate, automotive, industry, telecommunication, retail, multiple sectors. So that's a first differentiation between family businesses in the region and global family business. At EY, we also did a survey or an index, which is called the Global Family Business Index, that identified the top 500 families across the world. And actually, you can Google it also. It's a very interesting index, and it provides a lot of analysis in terms of how big the businesses are, how many employers do they have, revenue, geographical spreads, and so on. And what we found is that out of the 500 families that were identified, we only have 14 families from the Middle East, from the GCC, to be more specific. And these 14 families, although they are only 14, they actually have a total revenue of $119 billion and employ almost 500,000 people across the geographies. Many of them are going through this generational transition, as the leaders of those families are in their 50s. So they're thinking about what is the next step, who's going to be the next leader. Do we have the right people to run the business and lead the business going forward? Another criteria that we also found that these families are concentrated in top 3 sectors that they are concentrated on is real estate, asset management, and oil and gas. It's not surprising, of course, when you read this, especially if you know the economies that we have. Okay, so what are the main challenges that families face? I think, in my view, there are 2 sides of the coin. One side is the business challenges, and the other side is the family challenges. If we look at the business challenges, we all know that the economy is not the same as it used to be. Oil prices have gone down significantly, and it's affecting all the industries that are working in the economy. We know that there is increased pressure from competition and multinationals entering more freely. The family businesses do not have the same privileges that they used to have previously in terms of protection. All these things affect the business itself. There's also restrictions on lending and how to raise capital and also how to manage the businesses. On the family side, the challenges there lie primarily in the family succession and how prepared are the next generation to take the leadership position. Are they able to understand the business and adapt to the changing environment? Are they able to learn from the older generation the way they used to run the business, and also how the entrepreneurial spirit that the first generation had, is it transferred and given to the next generation? How do we manage conflict? If something happens between family members and there's a conflict between family members, what is the process? Is there a mechanism for managing conflict between family members away from the business, so it does not affect the business and affect the sustainability of the business going forward? Okay. So why diversification is important? How many of you had their coffee this morning? Excellent. So did you take it at Starbucks, or did you take it at Costa, or did you just take it from outside? Coffee is a very important example or metaphor. We are addicted to coffee, but why do we pay 20 dirhams for a latte, short latte or tall latte with hazelnut, and pay 1 dirham in another coffee shop? Because we are addicted to the environment, the experience that we get, and interaction we do with our colleagues when we go and have coffee and discuss social or business activities. In the Middle East, we started that very long ago, actually much earlier than Starbucks. I guess some of you might know that mocha originated actually from Yemen. There is a mountain there called Makha, and this is the origin of the mocha coffee. This is where it originated, and it was exported to all the countries in the world. In our communities, in our region also, we were able to develop this value chain of coffee, and we created the coffee community where writers, thinkers, philosophers used to gather and think and socialize as well. It was the center of the community. So we were very much addicted to coffee in that respect. Not the coffee itself, but the experience and the environment around it. Similarly, I guess we are addicted to oil as well. So not the oil itself, because we don't consume it. Or we do, of course, but this is not the purpose. That we are addicted with the value chain that is created by the oil and the impact that it has on the economy that we live in. So, however, as we all know that oil prices are very volatile, especially these days. Maybe a few months ago it was over $120 per barrel. Now it's less than $50 per barrel, and it was even lower. And this affects dramatically the way we think about doing business in the different communities and different countries we work in. It affects government spending. It affects the economy as a whole. So what do we need to do? What do we need to do? What we did at EY is we developed what we call a diversification tracker. And the purpose basically is to identify why do we need diversification in the first place. Basically, one of the main driver was that oil prices went down. So more people were thinking, okay, are we going to continue to be dependent on oil, or do we need to think of other alternatives? Excuse me. The other thing also, if we want to create sustainable economies that will generate employment for the local communities, we need to make sure that it's implemented correctly. However, if we look at the tracker and how it is calculated, what we found is that, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. What we found is that overall, the GCC countries, sorry, I'll just leave it here for now. The GCC countries lag behind the global average and the OECD average in general. And when we look at the tracker, we look at how diversified the economy, how dependent they are on oil or natural resources, how big is the private sector, and how complex is the economy itself. So although the GCC, as mentioned, lags behind the global average, there are different variances also within the different countries in the GCC. And luckily in the UAE, I think it is leading the pack in terms of diversification, in terms of making sure that they don't have dependence on natural resources. They are actually very close to the global average. Other countries are not the same. So Qatar, unfortunately, is the least diversified of the economies of the region. So, okay, so we said, okay, if we want to create a sustainable and sustainable economy, we want to ensure that it is diversified, what opportunities do we have? And we did a regression analysis and calculation, and we find if we manage to diversify the economy, we will be adding around $17.7 billion to the economy, and we will have sustainable economies that will add a significant amount of or number of jobs as well. Okay. The other thing we looked at, we said, okay, diversification is good. However, where shall we diversify? We need to be, clever in where do we spend the money. Yeah? So we looked at different sectors and we identified what we called a multiplier effect impact. And we said, okay, which sectors will have the highest impact on the economy and will create the highest jobs, number of jobs, and will have impact on multiple sectors. And there, of course, I can also share with you the actual report at a later stage, but what we found is that, for example, the construction industry, if for every dollar you invest in construction, you will be getting $1.8 back, and you will be impacting 15 other sectors. For transportation, for every dollar you invest in transportation, you will be getting $1.7 back, and it will impact 13 other sectors, and so on. So we said, okay, let's focus on the sweet spots, as we say, is that the things that will have the highest multiplier effect, that will employ the highest number of nationals, and will have a strength in being sustainable. And we find that number of sectors were at the top: R&D, telecommunication, transportation, and financial services. These are the main sectors that will create the higher impact, will employ the higher number of nationals, and are sustainable. Okay, now this is the macroeconomic things. Let's go back to the family business thing and try to link how family businesses can benefit from that, and what do they need to do to be able to sustain and continue and prosper in the future. In the morning we heard that family first and business second, and we also heard business first and family second. Again, I beg to differ here. I think you need to create a balance. You need to be to have an equilibrium between both sides. If you take care of the business only, so for example, you reinvest all the revenues that you get, you don't distribute dividends, with time family members will be disgruntled and will leave the business and will have no interest in continuing. And if you focus on the family only, distribute shares, distribute dividends, employ all family members, let them have holidays, then with time the business will collapse. Definitely, they cannot sustain that. And we found that for a family of five, a family of five will be a family of 50 after one generation, in 25 years. And to be able to sustain this type of growth, you need to have a compounded growth rate for the business of 18% and above, which is not an easy task to do. So to be able to do that, you need to have a dynamic business portfolio. One of the main issues that we face with some of the founders that I work with is that they have emotional attachment to many of their businesses. I have a family member or a large family that I'm working with, and the business started from a very humble beginning. The founder had a juice shop. And now they are a multi-billion-dollar company, but this shop still exists and is actually opposite one of their largest factories, and he doesn't want to let go of that shop because there is an emotional attachment to this shop, and similarly with other businesses. However, going forward, for the family and the business to prosper and be sustainable, they need to make sure that they review from time to time their portfolio of assets, and they are adapting to the changing economic environment and market environment. We've seen previously some of the examples of the successful businesses like Uber, like Netflix. All these businesses are disruptors. They disrupted the economies or the businesses that existed previously, and they came up with a different business model that was able to change everything. And this could happen in any industry. And unless the family businesses are able to foresee these changes and adapt quickly, they will not be able to sustain in the future. And I think one of the most important and things that families can do is to enable the new generation, the next generation, to enter into new ventures that are able to grow and prosper away from the different businesses that the family has created previously. I have a family in Saudi Arabia that I'm working with that what they did basically is we helped them structure a fund for new ventures. So any young family member who wants to, after they graduate, they come up with an idea and they develop a business plan and they go back to this fund, and the fund reviews the business plan analytically, and if they see it viable, then they invest with this person to help them grow this venture. And once it's big enough, then they can bring it back to the family business as a whole. The second thing that from a business perspective that the families need to do is to make sure that they have proper governance. We've heard in the morning how important governance is. Governance not only on the family side, on the business side, but also on the family side. It is very critical that families change the way they manage things. Usually what we have in our region is that there is a founder. Okay, I think we will need to hurry Rashid a little bit. Yeah. So usually what we found is there's a founder who runs everything. He makes all the decisions. He created the business, so he's not very concerned about governance. However, when you go to the second generation and third generation, when you have multiple owners, multiple managers, you need to have proper rules on how people will communicate and with each other, who's going to take decisions, who's going to have the authorities, what authority levels do they have, and so on. This is from a business side, and also from a family side. As a family, how do we deal with each other as family members or shareholders or board members or employees? We need to maintain also the family control over the business to be able to continue calling it a family business. On a family side, from a family point of view, I think being able to structure the involvement of the family members in the business is very important. Who's going to be involved in the business? How are we going to make this selection in terms of qualification, experience? Is it anyone, or do we need to have outside experience, and so on? How do we make sure that the values of the family is transferred to the next generation and instilled not only on the family but also in the business as well? And how do we manage the family business wealth? I think one of the most important things that families need to do is to create or separate between ownership and management. Make sure that there are forums for discussion, for discussing issues that relate to family and relate to ownership, away from the business. And also the business has its own board and its own governance rule that manage the business affairs independently without having the family issues intertwined with the business issues. I think with that, maybe I'll put it to a close, and maybe if there's any question, I'm happy to answer them. I hope I did not go over my time.
Rashid, thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.